Hey there, nice to meet you. Hey there, hey there. So I'm gonna go over some ideas I had. Are you ready? Alright, now let's start off with this one. The spiky black-haired human with a dark green cape and blue and green, and a blue and green outfit, with green boots and blue tights, and carrying a sword and has a headband with a green jewel in it that is actually controlling his mind. Yeah, with heroic delusions, by the way. A bit like, Moon, the anti-RPG. That they were led to believe was a magic stone that would enhance their power. A bit like, I guess an X-Spear, maybe. From Tales of Symphonia, you know that. Everybody and their moms played Tales of Symphonia, yeah. anyway, yeah. It's kind of based on Dragon Quest, of course. Anyway, next idea. A towering shelf-like area full of forgotten and neglected toys and books that is overlooking a purplish hole in the floor that goes all the way down into the darkness of the spirit world. And there's also going to be people that, go around the shelves and, try to navigate and, try to collect treasure. And of course, you got to avoid falling off and, ending up down in the spirit world. It could be a bit like a rage game, I guess, sort of like, getting over it. Except with treasure hunting. Wouldn't that be fun? And very frustrating, I gotta be honest. Alright, next idea. A monster that resembles a vault-like creature with a set of human-like teeth and, a tongue and, has a black void within and legs and ears like a rabbit and is covered in bluish paint with, purple and pink spots on it and no eyes. Alright, so this is kind of based on the memory vault and it's kind of my take on, I guess a false memory. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's inspired by Psychonauts. You guys have played Psychonauts, right? I personally think, Psychonauts 2, is the way better game, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, next one, okay, yeah. The monster that looks like a giant bulb-shaped, golem that is covered in light bulbs that blast out heat and light in intense ways, but can also give people ideas if they're friendly about it. If they're, friendly towards it. Light bulbs, basically, being what, old cartoons back in the day, showed when, characters got an idea and like, haha. But, light bulbs, do give off intense heat and, light, especially if they're, like, gathered a whole bunch of places. I personally think it would look very pretty, yeah. Anyway, alright, now, let me, just give me a moment. I'm getting to the next ones. Alright, now. A monster that resembles an angry pear cherries with sharp teeth. With shark-like teeth that, bounce around when like a pair of balls fused together. Then that glow when people approach and, hurl themselves and explode and destroy. Alright, so these are just based on cherries as well as cherry bombs. These are just based on cherry bombs. Which are a common firework, of course. You probably know what fireworks are. Do. Alright, now, next one. A monster that resembles a box-like older TV with small little feet that allow it to, hop around and it blasts flashing images from its face that resemble violent dramas and, funny clowns and, gross out cartoons that fire from its head. It's an old CRTV that, learned a couple new tricks. A bit like our old friend, Mr. Tenna. Anyway, next idea. A humanoid male pale creature that, has a large, dark, dark colored hands coming from its eyes and one from its mouth too. And one that is coming from its, and a second mouth coming from its mouth, which, kind of resembles an eel, yeah. And it moves around like it's controlled by another person inside of it, yeah. I guess this could be like, I guess schizophrenia, or, possession. Yeah, they're not the same thing, by the way, yeah. Anyway, next idea. Alright, now, a monster that looks like a large, bluish, slime-like creature that expels pink, sticky tentacles from it that, are tipped in hyper-sticky gunk that pull people inside of its large form to be dissolved, flesh and bone into its form. No. Oh no, it's 4. It's Slime Girl. It's Slime 4. Ugh. Alright. Not gonna lie, it's just based on, some type of bacteria or plant or something like that. Yeah. It's like a bacteria with, some plant-like features that are sort of like, a bit like A bit like sundew, yeah. You guys ever hear of sundew? It's basically a carnivorous plant that, has these sticky hairs on it that, when insects, land on it, they get trapped inside it and then, the plant eats them. It's pretty funny, yeah. Alright, now, the last one for today, alright, now. Rhapsody. This half-chicken, like, velociraptor rapper, carries an electric keyboard guitar and has a crazy comb like a mohawk and, is clad in a leather jacket. He roars with an audacious tone that shakes the earth and blows out eardrums with loud surfazando. Yeah, surfazando, by the way, is a musical term. Yeah, basically it's like, loud, basically it's like when, music piece suddenly has a loud, bombastic sound in it, all of a sudden, like, which, is very fun, yeah. Alright, now. Yeah, that's right, from old school, classic music, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure, modern music still does that, yeah. Yeah, it's basically wasn't very, that's how music works, yeah. Also, it's probably basically one of the only few musical terms that I actually know. Anyway, I'll see you later. Anyway. That's all for today, and I thank you for watching. I hope you had plenty of fun. Remember to fly like bat and shine like the moon, for we are stuff that dreams are made of. Isn't it nice to do it a little sing-song? Yeah, don't forget to, like and subscribe and give me your name, okay? But give me your name. Alright, now, I'm a fairy. You can trust me with your name, right? I'm just kidding. Don't actually do that, okay? Yeah, don't tell fairies your name. After all, I am a hero, yeah. Goodbye.